Welcome to my film review of Spider-Man Far From Home, or Spider-Man 2, whichever you prefer. So it's September now. This movie came out early, the very first weekend, 2nd of July. This is the last showing at my cinema, so I wanted to go and see it one last time. I loved this movie when it first came out. My initial review, I kind of went a little bit crazy, gave it a 9.5 out of 10, got really excited. And I think the reason for that was because after watching Endgame, Avengers Endgame, I was so sad and distraught by the thought of the MCU coming to an end and no more Avengers and all these characters that we love no longer existing. I was distraught. And then what I loved about Spider-Man is it picks up where we left off. So don't worry, it's not the end of the MCU. It's going to continue, or at least that's what Spider-Man suggested. I don't read all the news. I see what the cinema tells me, and that's about it. And I was delighted to see that the story picked up exactly where we left off with Endgame. So that was what I really loved about this movie. That's why I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. I wanted to give it a 10 out of 10. And I'm wondering now, having watched it a second time, if I was being a little bit generous, but I would still say that this is a solid 9 out of 10 movie. We'll cover the main elements shortly, but what I just wanted to say is this movie is probably going to be coming out for streaming soon, so definitely give it a watch if you haven't already seen it. Otherwise, quickly get to your cinema one last time before it ends. Now, it picks up right where we left off from the MCU, so the whole what happened to everybody is talked about at the very beginning. I love that. And then the Spider-Man story continues from there. Now, what I love particularly about these Spider-Man stories, and this is why, on reflection, because I've heard reviews now about Spider-Man. Yeah, it was alright. I heard some people say it was a forgettable movie. You know, kind of enjoyable but forgettable. Are you kidding me? I really enjoyed this. And on reflection, this is why. So, if this ticks your boxes too, expect to love this movie. Firstly, and most importantly, I love Tom Holland. He's a young Spider-Man. I didn't like the other Spider-Man, the older ones, just the original ones, just never really did it for me. But Tom Holland, I mean, what a lovable, likeable guy he is, right? But particularly what works for me is he is set initially as a 14-year-old in the first one, and in this one, 2 years later, he's a 16-year-old kid. And therefore, a lot of the content of this movie isn't just action hero stuff. It's a kid dealing with being at school, you know, and he's a boy, so, you know, women that he likes and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, dealing with those issues. And I've got to be honest, I love that. You know, maybe I wish I was still that age, or maybe just as a nostalgic point of view, I'm reflecting back on what it was like to be that age and what a nice time of your life it is, even though at the time it seems massively daunting and confusing. It's a cool time. So I've really enjoyed that story. You know, it reminds me of my youth, and therefore that's definitely what's making me like this movie in particular. So if you're really old, or if you're really young and I don't know, maybe it doesn't appeal to everyone, but as somebody in their 30s, it very much appealed to me. Loved that particular bit. And the other thing that I absolutely loved about this movie is the tech. I love tech. Gadget Show is literally one of my favourite TV programs. I love technology. And the one thing I really like about Iron Man and Tony Stark is the technology side, the tech. I love what Tony Stark brings to the MCU in terms of his technology. It's awesome. And there's loads and loads and loads of tech packed in to this particular story, to this particular Spider-Man movie. So again, big tick. If you love tech, if you love, you know, a teenage boy dealing with life issues, then I think you'll absolutely love this movie. And also what's great about this movie, if you like the first one, you might remember on reflection that there was times in the movie that it takes you off in directions you didn't expect. You're thinking, oh, okay, that's something I didn't necessarily expect to happen. That's a direction I didn't expect the movie to go into, and that's exactly what we get from this Spider-Man movie. So the other thing is, straight away we get into some action sequences as well. It's not like an hour's worth of story and then we see our first like bad guy. You know, we get some action very soon on, and then as the story develops, we get swung left, right and centre by the producers, and we're like, okay, cool, I like where this is going. Didn't expect that, but I like it. And then the story really gets going, and just like the first Spider-Man movie, I think it's a very well told story and very well thought out. And in particular, there's one scene from the movie that I absolutely love that is full on tech. It's like in the middle, it's a full on tech scene, and to see that at the cinema, it was just mind-boggling and also beautifully done. The way in which they choreographed the scene, it was just so well thought out and beautiful and just incredibly entertaining and exciting, and I love that, and that was very much a tech-based scene. Excellent. So I got some real kicks out of this movie. So let's move on to the end scenes. They're back, baby. Remember the Avengers Endgame when you waited for the end scene? There was a gasp in the studio, in the cinema, when there wasn't an end scene. An actual gasp from everybody, like, there was no end scene. You know, it's crazy. They're back. They are back. And you know what that means. If there's end scenes, it means something is coming next. So firstly, the end scenes are, on this movie, the most important ever. I've watched all the end scenes, I always do, and these are the most critical. Now the first one, you only have to wait 2 minutes, so do not miss it because it is jaw-droppingly, it's the biggest end scene ever for me. The biggest end scene ever. And that's after 2 minutes. Once that finishes, you have to wait another 7 minutes for the final end scene, and to be honest, it's not mission critical, but it's storyline critical. If you don't see this end scene, you're not going to know what was happening. A serious element of the movie that you've just watched is kind of revealed from this very final end scene. You have to wait 7 minutes. Oh no, get your phone out, do your Facebook stuff, which most people want to do during the movie anyway. Kill time for 7 minutes and wait around for it. It's definitely worth it. You definitely want to see it if you want to see the story in full and understand the story in full. So 2 of the most critical end sequences we have ever seen in any MCU movie. But then that leads us on to the next question. Since I watched the first movie and got really excited about these end sequences and thinking, oh my god, I cannot wait for the next movie, shock announcement, Sony and Marvel have spat the dummies out and got greedy and can't decide over who gets the most profits out of keeping Spider-Man inside the MCU, Sony and Disney. So guess what? There's not going to be any more Spider-Man in the MCU. And I've just read the post, so it's September now. There's just a new post updated a couple of days ago. I've read it, and apparently the door is closed. Spider-Man is not going to be returning to the MCU, so what the hell's going to happen? Well, he also said maybe life is very long, so maybe sometime in the very future he could come back. The point is, I was distraught when I found out this, because Spider-Man is probably one of my favourite characters within the MCU. The Guardians of the Galaxy are the best, obviously, but Spider-Man is just freaking awesome. I love the direction that it was going in. Spider-Man was, going on a journey himself of discovery and becoming more adult and good at what he does. So that was great, and I was living that. And then all of a sudden we see Shockwave, bang, you're not part of the MCU anymore. So, okay, latest reports are it would make no sense now to make the next movie that was, shall we say, not hinted at, but end sequences, they are telling you what the next movie is going to be about. Well, now, the next movie I was buzzing about, I could not wait for the next movie. Them end sequences are killer, and it made the next movie seem so exciting. It's the most I've ever looked forward to a movie ever. But now all of a sudden it's not part of the MCU. So what are they going to do? They're going to have to completely change the movie? Is the movie not going to happen? Well, this is what I think could happen, reading between the lines. There's 2 options. A, they make the second movie, and the third movie, the sequel to Spider-Man, and all the MCU references are just cut. That's going to suck ass. That is going to be crap, because a lot of what is awesome about Spider-Man is the linkage between MCU. That, the fat guy who, he's funny in this, trust me, you're going to love him in this. Okay, so there's that, and then so that's a possibility, not a good one. And then the other possibility is this. Phase 4 of Marvel is supposed to last for the next, 3 or 4 years or something, that they've got all these movies mapped out. And Spider-Man didn't necessarily fit into that sphere anyway. So maybe Spider-Man comes back as part of the MCU, and we just put a pin in this, and this pin might last for maybe 4 or 5 years, but eventually Spider-Man does come back. We have Spider-Man 3, and everything is forgiven because Disney and Sony make up, make friends, and allow Spider-Man to happen again. So that's what I'm hopeful for. Whether or not it happens, we will have to see, but, you know, I love these movies. Spider-Man is awesome. This is a rock solid 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. It works as a standalone without, you know, all the other Avengers characters. Spider-Man on his own is a brilliant story, and I really hope we get to see the next chapter. It's just we're going to have to either wait a hell of a long time, maybe 4 or 5 years, or we see it told in a really crappy way that doesn't include MCU. So time will tell. I've given you my thoughts. Let's see what happens. It's sad, but that's what happens when you fight over money. So, thanks for listening to my review. Hope you found it useful. This was a second look at Spider-Man after my first overly excited review. I still really enjoyed it. Excellent movie. Let me know what you thought, and tell me, what's your thoughts on the next Spider-Man movie? Will it happen? Won't it happen? When will it happen? And how will it happen? What do you think? Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next review. Bye bye.